Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and with a new NBA season upon us, I am personally extraordinarily excited about today's episode because this is someone who is so accomplished in the world of professional sports, youth sports, coaching at all different levels, but more importantly than that, we are going to transcend just talking about basketball today. And of course, this is going to be an episode about entrepreneurship, resilience, reps, and what it takes to succeed at any endeavor that's worthwhile in life, in business, in relationships, in sports, in literally anything that you do. And we're going there with an incredible entrepreneur who's such an innovator, but I think you're going to see that he, as much as he loves business, as much as he loves basketball, he puts an equal, if not greater, level of importance on what happens in our minds. What is that true ingredient that's going to take us to success? So let me introduce you to today's guest. His name is Wesley Horne. Wesley is a former NBA shooting instructor and the creator of TruRep AI. TruRep is proactive AI that helps players develop pro-level shooting patterns using a smartwatch. TruRep OS is the future of player development in sports, and you're going to see that Wesley's message is not just about technology. It's not just about shooting form, although he feels very strongly about the importance of shooting when it comes to basketball, but really you're going to see an entrepreneur who is so committed to innovation in service that he really deeply has the pulse of his industry and the direction that it's going in, and most importantly, the direction that it needs to go in. And when you pair that with his work ethic and his drive, gosh, this is such a winning formula. We're all going to be inspired from today's conversation, so I'm excited about this one. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Wesley Horne. All right, Wesley, I am so excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Brian, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Heck yes, I could have humble bragged about so many of your professional accomplishments, but I don't want to talk about that team in purple and gold here on the air, so I'm going to kick it back to you. Take us beyond the bio. Who's Wesley? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Well, first I got to give credit to the Lord. The Lord's really blessed me in my life to give me drive and intuition to just overcome against resistance and being told no. In my life early, I was born in a very rural area, and wasn't supposed to play college ball, wasn't supposed to coach in the NBA, but Michael Jordan lit a fire in me like he did many others, and I had to know what they did at the highest level, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. So I broke through every barrier to get to the highest level, and I was willing to sweep any floor or clean any toilet that I had to get an opportunity to prove myself and to go above expectations. And so it led me in areas that I never thought that I would be in. And coaching in the NBA really opened my eyes into angles, into footwork, into analytics and numbers and how it all matters and how every single rep that you take, it matters. And it starts with the mentality that you are going to overachieve and that you're going to do things the right way every single time, whether someone's looking or not. Because performance, it comes from preparation. And without the proper preparation, you're not going to perform very well. And so during my time with the Philadelphia 76ers, I kept up with miscellaneous analytics, which led me to help players to improve their overall game, get more minutes and greater contracts and longevity ultimately in their career. Leading to the G League, based on that experience, it led me into player development. Shooting was my area of expertise, but as I mentioned earlier, God blessed me with many talents, and one of them is a personality, because players absorb information differently. And so I was always willing and able to change the message so that they just didn't shake their head in agreement when I coached them, but they absorbed the information and was able to apply it. And during that experience, a couple of players lost multi-million-dollar contracts due to poor shooting rhythm and thumb flick from the non-shooting hand, the guide hand. And I looked throughout the league to find a formula or a tool that could help players to do that. And while there were some things on the market, they really were just Band-Aids. And So a couple of good friends of mine still today lost multi-million-dollar NBA contracts because of those problems that were not addressed in their adolescent years. And so that's what led me to TruRep. And for the past nearly 13 years, over a decade, that I have been on the path of most resistance. I was rejected 11 times in 9 years in trying to get a patent approved. I received that patent. And now TruRep is changing the way players train. TruRep is putting the power in the hands of players at every corner of the earth, so that they don't have to rely on a coach, or if they don't have the money to go after a coach, if they don't have the resources, that even the orphans and the kids without dads can have access to technology that can lead them into being great shooters. And it's so important. This movement is to me. I'm a pioneer in this movement, and biomechanics. You never move any other. You don't shoot, and you don't go through your shooting pattern any other time in life unless you're shooting a basketball. So, picture this, Brian. Whoop measures health. Whoop is a very impactful and powerful tool for that. TruRep builds skill, and so. Right now, we're in over 100 countries. The technology is available for iOS. You need an Apple Watch to use it. And so I'm aware that there are bottlenecks and there are expenses associated with that. But we're doing some really big things, and I just can't wait to share all the information I have based on the questions that you may have. So please help me in directing my answers to your listeners, and let's make the most of all of this so that we can help everybody on the planet make every rep count.
Heck yes, Wesley, so many aspects of what you just shared, even in that very brief overview about all the things that you're doing, why you're doing it, that stands out to me so much. But you and I didn't talk about this off the air, I'm going to reveal that I'm a lifelong soccer player. Soccer's always been my sport, but as a native Bostonian who bleeds green, obviously basketball is so near and dear to my heart. So I love just hitting a local court and just standing at the free throw line, because that's the extent of my abilities, and just putting some free throws up. And it's easy to track your free throw percentage over time. And as someone who didn't grow up playing basketball, it's really cool to see that when I first started, 30% at the line. Now, if the more that I play, the more I can shoot 80% from the line. No pressure situation, not in a game environment. But with that, it really makes me appreciate. This is the thing that as soon as I came across your work, all the great things I've seen about your professional background, it's right in the name of your company. TruRep. You put such a strong emphasis on reps, Wesley, and I've lived that firsthand. My form is by no means textbook, but putting in those reps is part of it. And it's funny, you and I were geeking out off the air, not about basketball, but about entrepreneurship. This is the unsexy stuff. We look at game highlights, we look at entrepreneurial magazines, and we look at the sexy things, but all of that comes from putting the reps in. Talk to us about why that made its way all the way into the ultimate name of your company.
Well, bad reps create bad patterns. Most players, 99% of players, can't self-correct. And so today we have technology like home court. You have other technologies that they still are powerful and impactful, but they're reactive technologies. They're video technologies, and you watch your shooting arc, trajectories and speed, ball rotation, and things like that. But what about the release? What about the actual movement of the human body? Was the ball released properly? And I tell players all the time, just because it goes in, it doesn't mean it's a good shot. I can kick the ball over my head backwards, and it can go through the net and count for points, but it does not mean it was a good shot. So that theory is a lie. It's a false response to what a good shot is. So when players begin to learn how to move their body and they build strength, and with TruRep, you don't even need a ball in your hand. You put the watch on your non-shooting wrist. The non-shooting arm moves in sync with the shooting arm, and it finishes at the top in the follow-through. The non-shooting hand has two responsibilities. It balances the ball in the shooting pocket, and it guides the ball upon release. You can Google an image of Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant shooting a fadeaway when their shoulders are unsquare, or they have an outstretched hand from a defender contesting their shot. And those guys had tremendous jumping ability and athleticism, but their body is almost at a 45-degree angle from the floor and a fadeaway. But if you look at their follow through, when that ball is being released, that guide hand, you can see all 5 fingers from the side as it's guiding that ball out to keep it on line to the target. And they only did things the right way. Michael Jordan has a quote, and I can't maybe quote it exactly, but he's like, if you practice bad habits 1,000 times, you only get, you learn bad habits 1,000 times. So if you don't get the fundamentals down and the proper pattern, you're going to struggle. And you mentioned soccer. We're branching out. I've answered a lot of bells with TruRep. A lot of people said, well, they don't have Apple Watches. So I said, yeah, okay. So we created a team system. So a team system is now being adopted by high schools. Troy University just came on board with us. Troy has been using TruRep. They were the worst three-point shooting team in the NCAA last year. They've been using TruRep for 5 weeks, and the team has improved their three-point percentage by 7%. Historically in the NCAA, over the course of a season, the greatest improvement that's ever been is 1.5% three-point increase over the course of an entire season. So this is revolutionary technology, and so I've worked so hard with the terminology, the explanation of how to apply it, the application of TruRep. So Troy's using TruRep now. Players are getting 40 reps up every day before they warm up for practice, after a weight training session when their arms and legs feel like rubber. Players are using TruRep if they have a leg injury or they need to rest their lower half. Basketball players have to do that throughout season. And they sit in on the edge of a chair and they shoot a basketball against the wall. So they keep their shot fine-tuned. I had a power forward who's now with St. Louis University. He was 46% shooting free throws. He used TruRep for 3 weeks, and he's a 78% free throw shooter. And all it did was realign he's a big guy. And we all have different bone structures and body frames, but our follow-throughs are the same. Kevin Durant has a beautiful follow-through. Kevin Durant has to bottle a lot of length up. His arms are very long, his legs are very long, but his follow-through is money. And he has succeeded in his career, not just playing above the rim. Kevin Durant can fill it up from deep, and he also has a beautiful mid-range shot. And I don't know that he rarely misses free throws. So he's another really good example of, even though you have a different and unique bone structure, which is really used to his advantage in the NBA, his follow-through is still pure and just really consistent. Now, I will say this. I want to say this. Halliburton for Indiana Pacers. When I'm working in the NBA and you have a guy like Halliburton, chances are I might not mess with his shot, Brian, just because if he's able to consistently make shots, there's always room for improvement, right? But if I mess with his shot as consistent as he's been, I may interfere with his confidence. I may interfere with his mentality and everything else that he's trying to do as a leader for the Indiana Pacers. Now, if he starts falling short, then yes, we might need to work on making some changes there. But there are just so many people that I see at the pro level, John Morant, Rudy Gobert. There are so many people that I can help in a short period of time. TruRep can help them, not me personally. TruRep can change their lives. I saw it with Janai Broome with Auburn. And I watched these guys struggle from the free throw line. You mentioned it. That's an uncontested shot. That's really the only time in the game when you're guaranteed to have an uncontested shot. And the pressure's on because the crowd, all eyes are on you. But when you can rely on pure form and you can rely on pure patterns that you've replicated over and over and over, and through repetition of correct patterns and correct reps, you can rely on that in any game time situation.
Yeah, I want to go there then, because here you are introducing external factors into the conversation. You're talking about confidence. You're talking about the influence that they have on the game. You're talking about game time situations. I've never taken a free throw in front of 24,000 screaming fans who are all hoping that I miss 2 in a row so they can get free Chick-fil-A, as we see in the NBA so frequently these days. All of these circumstances, The form is one thing. I always mess this quote up. There's some sort of quote, and I'll just paraphrase, where it goes along the lines of, in those pressure moments, you're not going to rise to the best of your abilities. You're going to fall to the level of your training. Wesley, when you talk about putting those reps in, how do we do it in a way that isn't just putting reps into our hands and our wrists and our fingers and all of that, but also in our minds? How do we start to create those pressure environments in our training?
Well, you have to hold yourself accountable. A lot of players that I have, we have targets on the wall. We focus on all net. I watched Dirk Nowitzki, do this in the NBA, and he could just shoot from form shooting range, and just every shot was all net. He didn't touch the rim, and if he did, he started over. But his goal was 5 shots in a row, all net, and then he moved his spot. But it has to start mentally, and you have to know that it's a path of progress. It's not easy, and so you have to stay locked in and know that you can achieve. TruRep gives players that feedback on the fly. So I hope that through using TruRep, that they're able to get that live feedback, that proactive feedback, so that they can adjust and make their patterns better each time, and they're not discouraged by what they might get as negative feedback. I've included video within the app. I got some new features that are coming out for shot analyzing and different things, so that I can help players. As coaching in the NBA and high school and college, I've coached every single level. It was a great blessing to help 12 to 15 players at a time, but this technology allows me to help players around the world. And so that's the goal. And I hope that it helps players to boost their confidence in how they mentally approach each rep. It's so important. And I think that that's the one thing that we're missing. I think not just in basketball, but how everybody wakes up daily to learn something new, to go to bed smarter, to outwork the competition. And that just really starts with desire, heart, and perseverance.
Yeah, and it's those key ingredients. So many of our conversations, obviously we're having this one on the air, but even before we hit record together today, we were geeking out about those are the real ingredients that are going to determine success. And what I find so admirable about what you've built with TruRep, you alluded to it right there, is you're no longer impacting just professional players with your coaching. You're no longer impacting just your high school team when you're coaching 12 to 15 kids. You now have the ability to help people at scale. And so I want to ask you about that broader marketplace, because clearly you view the basketball world as exactly that, as bringing the world on that path towards skills development, towards personal development, professional development along the way. You identify obviously the different segments of that market. There's high schools out there that have needs. There's the whole world of AAU, which I know you have strong feelings about. Why is that so near and dear to your heart when you look at the landscape of your industry?
Well, players, I think that it has to do with a lot of standards, self-control, having a high standard of who you are and what you reflect. That is AAU. Kobe once told me, he said, Coach Horne, you're a purist. Don't involve yourself with AAU. It has completely diluted the sport of basketball. And while it was created with the best intentions to give players proper exposure, being born in a very rural area of Alabama with dirt roads, cows, and chickens, we didn't even have an AAU team. But if I would have been close enough, or if I could have afforded to get to one, I would have played on a team. But what I see today, it's money grabs. I go to these events that are most of the time unsafe for families. They're overcharging parents. Kids are not getting proper coaching. The trainers today, the coaches in basketball today are unqualified. This is not a knock to these people. This is a sense of motivation that they should go out and really focus on what they're doing to help the youth, to help the kids, and to help people. It is not just opening gym doors and rolling basketballs out. While I respect all the volunteers that I see at YMCAs and rec centers, it's a shame that colleges around the world have not injected sports management and former college players so many hours each week to work with these kids, because training and coaching are completely, it's a 180. It's a complete 180. Most trainers I see out there today, they're training kids based on how they grew up, how they played. These kids don't understand the game the same way. They don't have the same athleticism, the same bone structure or basketball IQ, and they don't understand the game, the ways to improve and the ways to excel the same way. So you have to meet them where they are, and you have to get them. And same thing with the coaches. And so I have progress leagues where each week we learn pick and roll, movement without the ball, learning how to defend and second line of defense, and on and on and on. I make players rotate positions so that even if they're 5'2", they understand the position of a center. They understand the position of setting a screen and playing and defending a screen. And that's the under the basket IQ that we all need to get back to here in America. They're doing a good job overseas, but here in America, the hype, the AAU, the money grabs, come join this tournament with 500 teams. You're never going to see the most elite teams in these tournaments, by the way. There are so many teams that are in these tournaments that is just, you may see them, you may not. You may win games by 50, you may lose games by 50. So there's no evaluation of talent. And so when I was coaching in college, I would go to these tournaments in Atlanta and other areas, and I've left the gym within 10 minutes because you have ball heavy guards. You have very few guys over 6'6", so they stand out. But you really don't get to see how polished these players are and what they can really do to perform and contribute to your program. And so Kentucky's head coach, Coach Pope, he had a social media post not too long ago, and he's talking to a group of guys that wanted to come to Kentucky. And I don't know if they were high school or NIL transfer players, but he said, if your shooting form is broke, I'm not going to touch you. And it wasn't that he didn't care about these players, but he needs these players to perform. And he said, he also was humble enough to say, I'm not the coach that's going to come out here and say I'm the best player development coach and shooting instructor to help you. I can't help you in certain areas. I might tweak your rhythm. I might tweak your hand placement, but I'm not the guy. And it's not his responsibility. As I mentioned, Marcus Blakely, he was an NCAA champion. I didn't mention him earlier by name. I'm still good friends with Marcus. He was an NCAA champion, got cut by the NBA due to poor rhythm. Trey Johnson's coaching college basketball, one of the best men I've ever met, one of the smartest men in basketball that I've ever met, drafted by the Lakers as a point guard, drafted by the Dodgers as a pitcher. He's coaching college basketball right now to give back, and I love what he's doing. But Trey had a thumb flick issue, and he was deadly. He was a D-League MVP at the time, before G-League. He was a D-League MVP. He had a mid-range, a deadly shot. He could shoot it from outside, but the concern was his three-pointer. And because of that issue that he had been practicing for 15 years, it kept him from getting that long-term contract in the NBA. And I suffered through tears and emotions with these guys. But that sparked what led me to build TruRep. And through the years, as a pioneer, even the patent office said, you can't patent sunlight. And I said, this is a specific movement. This is human biomechanics that I'm putting a patent on because I want to help players to learn that. And everybody focuses on the dominant hand. Maybe, Brian, that when you learn to shoot a basketball, you heard the term beef. Balance, elbows, eyes, follow through. It's not a bad, not a bad thing. It's not a bad concept. But there's no focus on the non-shooting arm and the responsibilities of the guide hand. When you fix the non-shooting arm and the guide hand, the dominant hand falls into place. I've got videos and documentation and case studies that would blow your mind if you wanted to see it. And as I said earlier, when I coach players, sometimes they absorb things and sometimes they don't. So I have to pivot to make sure that they do. It's wild how players adapt and absorb what TruRep teaches them, because they adapt on their own. So it empowers them to make their own adjustment and say, hey, you know what? If I move this way, I get good feedback. My daughter was 2 years old in a diaper. She couldn't speak a solid sentence. And I have video of her with a TruRep with an iWatch on her wrist, and she would shoot it and get the good feedback and hold her follow through at 2 years old and say, that's good, Daddy. And I said, that's right, it was good. And so today she's 8 years old and she has pure shooting form. She shoots a silent basketball. It's very lightweight, but she goes through her repetitions like a jumping jack. She just does 10 or 20 a day, doesn't stress her body, doesn't hurt her joints, it doesn't stunt her growth. It just puts that DNA, that basketball shooting pattern it ingrains it in her basketball DNA and helps her so that she does choose to play basketball. Look out, my daughter's going to light them up.
Heck yes. I love that, Wesley, especially because you called out literally the full extent of my basketball education, which was beef, 100%, going all the way back to middle school gym class. That's exactly what we're taught. And you're right. It's not as actionable. It doesn't have a feedback loop built into it. And so I think it's really incredible what you've built with TruRep. But I want to switch gears a little bit because hearing about TruRep, and I love the story about your own daughter, I think that's a perfect illustration of if you do the work, results will follow. And that's how so much of life is that doesn't mean results are going to follow instantly. If you and I go to the gym today, we're not going to instantly see the results today. Just like in business, if you and I put the work in today, these results may not show up for 6 months or for a year or even longer. When I launched this podcast, I learned that lesson the hard way. And so I want to switch gears and talk to Wesley, the entrepreneur, but also probably Wesley, the coach, because I keep hearing you talk about that path of most resistance. And I think that we live in a society, I can speak on behalf of entrepreneurs because I interview and interact with them for a living. Everybody wants the path of least resistance, Wesley, and everybody wants easy, but we operate in a world where that's not the case. You've worked at the highest echelons. You are a pioneer in your own industry as well. Why is calling out that path of most resistance and overcoming that resistance through persistence and hard work and dedication? How do we do that? How do we replicate that in our own journeys? And why is it so important?
Yeah, oh man, what a great question. You know, Christ has been my guide. Christ has been my confidence in being able to overcome, and through Him, I've been able to achieve. And so, for me personally, that's what gives me the drive, because if I put my best foot forward and I have confidence that I'm helping someone, that I'm doing my very best to make an effort to meet someone who may be lost or someone who may be struggling, then I'm doing something that's impactful in the community and in this world. And just the value that he showed me in his example is why I live the way that I do as a coach and as an entrepreneur. And even though you go through the path of most resistance, just know, if you're an entrepreneur listening out there, the Lord loves you. He sees the tears you shed in your pillow. He sees your struggles, but He wants you to know that you have the talent to overcome and to achieve. And if it's for a noble cause, then stay the course. Don't change because there's resistance ahead of you. In basketball, I'm sure when James Naismith created the game, and there was an underhand granny shot, as we call it, maybe still today. That's what I called it when I was a kid. But that shot had to change, and it went overhead. So I'm sure when somebody came in the gym the first time and shot the ball overhand, they said, "What is that? That's weird. We're not going to do that." And now look what's going on. So there's always room for improvement in every sport and every business. You should always look to make those adjustments and improvements if it leads to a positive impact, if it does good, if it's morally sound, and you're doing what's right. And so that authority doesn't come from my own opinion. That authority comes from the Lord. And so as an entrepreneur, I face so much backlash in just what I'm doing. I've had people really ignore. They've snickered, they've laughed, and just said, this is ridiculous. But I've had people like Chauncey Billups tell me, I had him put it on his left hand, shoot the ball right-handed. He put it on his left wrist, and he shot the ball left-handed. He said, if I had this technology when I was a kid, I'd be the best ambidextrous shooter on the planet. And Big Shot Billups, he understood it. And I have so much confidence for him, and I loved watching him as a kid play because you could always count on him. And he always stepped up when the opportunity rose, and he needed to be an overachiever. And so that's what I love so much about Chauncey and other people that have gotten it. So that validation to me said, Wesley, keep going. And so today, even though I just don't know, I'm working very hard to find good people, to work with good partners, to work to find good investors, and people that are really not just people with money, but people that see the need for this, see the power in this. And so I've even went a step farther, and I'm on my 8th attempt, Brian, to build a facility in Charleston, South Carolina. And the landscape is expensive. It's very expensive. I'm a sole entrepreneur. I'm a for-profit, so everything comes out of my pocket. I haven't had any government assistance or anything. And I'm building the TruRep Sports Lab in Mount Pleasant, and we're going to use it as for field testing, tech development. We got so many great things going on with TruRep and the team system, which I'm talking to G League teams now to help them, to provide them the urban achievers in Boston and in your neck of the woods. Lino Sanchez, I got to give a big shout out to Lino for putting this school together and starting this school. You know, Brian, when they took funding away from the public school that he had invested so much of his life into to impact young men and women in Boston, mostly young African-American children in the Boston area, when their grades went down, they pulled funding for sports. And it's a heartbreaking thing when you take sports away from the kids, because if they're achieving, it gives them motivation to achieve in the classroom so that they can play. And we have just gotten off kilter about what we focus on in the education field, because sports are so important. Coaching, mentors are so important. And so that's why I'm building the TruRep Sports Lab here, so that I can have the headquarters and sister locations like the Urban Achievers High School and partner with them, not to just donate and give them the technology of TruRep, but to help those kids. They want to be sports entrepreneurs. So I want to help them in marketing and coding and development and all of these things. And if I have to do it alone until the day I die, then I will. So any strategic partners or investors that are out there listening to our show today, I'm not begging for anything. But if you want to come on board and you want to be part of a movement, this is it. This is it. This is the future of sports training. Golf is next on our agenda. I can't wait to do that. And Brian, I might need your help for soccer, because I'm no expert in soccer or any other sport, but I will be pulling in experts to help me in those areas as well.
Gosh, Wesley, you get me absolutely fired up. I've got goosebumps running up and down my body hearing you on this mission. I always say on the air that success leaves clues, and holy cow, you are leaving so many clues as to the ingredients to your success. I love how lit up you are and how mission driven you are about all of this. Wesley, you and I have got to have a chat off the air, because I've got quite a few intros that I want to make for you, but I also love a former Celtic reference in there. Shout out to Chauncey Billups. Love the fact that he is such an advocate for all the things that you've built and that you're continue to build at TruRep. But I will admit, one of the things that makes me the saddest on the air is how quickly these episodes go by. So I want to put you on the spot one last time with one final loaded broad question that you can take in any direction you want. And that is, what's your best advice for listeners? We are being listened to by wantrepreneurs and entrepreneurs from all walks of life, over 150 countries. It always blows my mind to see what two people behind microphones can do to share our messages and our voices with the world. And you are also one of us. You're a fellow entrepreneur. So what's that one piece of advice you want to leave them with today?
Yeah, learn from your past, but don't dwell on it. Plan for your future, but don't count on it. Do the very best you can with what you have right now. Don't spend time in valleys. You're going to meet valleys in life. Don't spend so much time wondering why you're in those valleys or depressed and thinking about the suffering that you're going through. It's okay to feel down. It's okay to feel beat up. It's okay to feel as if there are no answers, and that you just don't understand what your next steps may be. But be patient with yourself. Look what it took for you to get to where you are, and be confident in that effort and energy that it took to get there. Don't back down to that resistance. Don't back down to doubt. Continue to strive to move forward. Find out the fastest way to get out of that valley. Pick yourself up and get out of that valley. Anytime you're down, it's always an uphill exit. It's always an uphill exit. So when you take the stairs, it's a lot harder than the elevator. So climb your butt up the exit, get up out of that valley, climb the stairs, and you will be a better person for it. You'll be a better entrepreneur for it. The Lord is teaching you a lesson through it. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to have to lead others, and they're going to need that confidence in their leader. So build yourself up in every aspect and everything that you go through, and look for the positives. Look for, how can I win in this situation, no matter what it is.
Amen to all of that. Wesley, truer words have never been spoken. I'm so appreciative of you bringing your passion and your why, your mission, so much of it here on the air for all of our listeners. And hearing you and I talk about it is one thing, but seeing those reps in practice, actually firing up our Apple Watches and seeing that positive feedback loop, that's an entirely different experience that I'm excited to firsthand experience. So Wesley, you've got to drop some links on us for listeners who are fired up about TruRep. Where the heck should they go from here? How can we start putting those reps that count in?
Yep, go to the App Store, TruRep, TRUREP. You can find more information online, TruRepApp.com. TruRep is for everyone. If you're a parent with young children, let them borrow your Apple Watch. Get a decent band, make sure it fits snug. If it's not reading you as the ball is being released or as you're holding your follow through, adjust the watch. You can get false positives, so you can fool the technology. Let's not do that. That's like Nintendo Wii, just sitting on the couch and swinging the remote around. Let's actually go through your shooting pattern, do it without a ball, and learn the proper patterns. Without a ball, don't focus on makes and misses right away. Just build your pattern. Use your body weight to start with, and then as you get stronger and you can, get over 80, 90% shooting 10 or 20 shots, then you can pick a silent ball up and continue to build. Take one step at a time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I don't care what it is. As I mentioned in the app, I have a shot analyzer that we're getting ready to release very soon. So I'm happy to announce that, and I want to help players, and the shot analyzer is just in the phone. So for players that do not have an iWatch, I still want to help them too. So this is one way that I can eliminate that bottleneck by giving access to players so that I can evaluate their shooting form through a short form video. So I'm happy to do that, and go check it out. Please spread the word. Please reach out to your neighbors. Become a better shooter. It's the most important skill in basketball, and no matter how tall you are, how athletic you are, you can become a shooter. There's always a position for a great shooter on any team. And so I want to leave that with you and take that into every sport that you play and you participate in, and in the classroom and in your business. Make every rep count.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Wesley, you have built an absolute fan in me, and I hope that so many listeners around the world are excited to check out TruRep. It's so peaceful. I love all those Instagram reels that I see where people are just like, this is my happy place. And it's just, basketball is cool because you can just be a one-man show. You can just go to your local park and put shots up, and it's such a great way to clear your mind, to practice excellence, to practice discipline. So listeners, you already know the drill. We're dropping all those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. Otherwise, Wesley, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Brian, and thank you to all your listeners.